I'm with Joey Tortora breaking down the Granite Games this weekend. So I get to be joined by one of my good friends and two-time CrossFit Games athlete. What's up, man? How are you?
Man, you and I just finished watching this live, so we're both riding an emotional high. I'm excited to talk about this. This was a good competition, all around.
So for those of you tuning in on Monday morning or whenever you're tuning in, Joey and I just got done watching it live together. And, I mean, the amount of yelling that was going on was unbelievable. The Granite Games delivered in a fashion that it always does. And I'd love to start with the women's side of things. Obviously, brute athlete Emma Cary, really amazing. I think the one word that sums up the weekend on the women's side is teenagers. Unreal.
Yeah, absolutely. They might be teenagers on paper, but they performed like adults all weekend, starting with Emma's, 200-pound snatch. And then, Mallory went for 200 as well, narrowly missed it, caught it in the bottom. And then from then on, they didn't care about how old they were, how many times somebody else had been to the CrossFit Games. They were out for blood, which was very cool.
It was impressive to watch just the way that they handled themselves through the weekend, and really competing with the household names on the women's side, whether it was, Alessandra Pacelli or Christy Irma O'Connell. Like, these are names that we've heard, and quite frankly, and you heard it all weekend if you watched any of the broadcast, perennial games athletes. Well, let me tell you, knock, knock, knock. I got some news for you guys. We got two new sheriffs in town, and they're called Mallory O'Brien and Emma Cary, and they are out, like you said, for blood. It is scary. So it begs the question, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. It begs the question, will we see a teenager on the podium this year at the CrossFit Games? This is a bold prediction, but I want to hear what you got to say.
I'm going to go with yes. I think that the CrossFit Games is the program there will only lend itself to these two athletes even more. I think Emma's an athlete who likes to go long. She's, very aerobic, and we didn't see anything like that here. We had like one run workout, I guess you could call it that, but that was definitely a thruster workout for most people. So, traditionally you see more running at the games. I think if you watched her, we can talk about this too later, but like her transition speed, that girl can run.
Unreal.
So I think she's going to do very well. Along with Mallory, they both had proven they can lift a ton of weight. So I don't know what's going to stop these two, especially now that they got a taste for it.
Yeah, blood's in the water, right? It's interesting because when we spoke earlier, you guys, you and Dex kind of informed me that the Granite Games, traditionally speaking, have been more heavy monostructural. People that do well there typically do well at the games, and really that's not what we saw this year. What we saw this year was a lot shorter and a lot heavier. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, it's almost like they went back to like a more regional-esque format. Sometimes in regionals you would get a true form runner or like a longer chipper, but this event really played out like a regional used to. So maybe, CrossFit did have the final say on programming, so maybe they wanted to nix that until, games time. So who am I to say? But yeah, I definitely think if there was one knock on the programming of the weekend, it would be that. We didn't see like a longer test where, some of those athletes might have not even been in that top 10 had that test shown up. But speaking to those teens, I don't think they're going to have a problem with that whatsoever.
Yeah, one way or another. We referenced the thruster run where it was a descending ladder of thrusters, and depending on where you were, an increasing amount of running, probably, if I had to guess, anywhere from like 180 meters to maybe 250 at the very end. It was, do a set of thrusters, run, do a set of thrusters, run, counting down by threes. But the key was there, it was heavy dumbbells. It was 50 double 50s for the ladies and double 70s for the gentlemen. What we and you referenced it earlier, it wasn't a running workout, and I heard Christy say it earlier. She said, I'm typically really good at running, and she said when they changed that, instead of, because it's supposed to be a 200-meter run in between, and they changed it to be shorter. She said, now I got to the dumbbells a little bit faster. Going to your point, it was everything but a running workout. It was a, how well can you do heavy thrusters?
Yeah, 100%. It was, it was a density test. It was, I think a lot of athletes, had that run been consistent every time at 200 meters, would have done better, because you would have had more time to let your arms recover a little bit. But because, especially that round of 18 into the 15, a lot of people went full send on the first one. They do 18 unbroken, and then you jog down the field and back. And to your point, it was like, 100 and some meters. So
it wasn't a lot.
You're right back on there. It was like, I don't know, like a little hopeful cool down walk. So it turned into like, okay, can I just continuously move these? And we saw Emma struggle with that a hair, but she still got top 10 on that workout. But that being said, if she doesn't get no reps on that workout, she might finish top 5, which puts her well in the driver's seat going into that last workout. And you and I were also, talking about this. But on that last workout, she wanted to go full send because she wanted to win the Granite Games. So maybe if she has like a little bit of a point lead going into that, she knows, okay, I can drop it here, take a quick break. If 1 or 2 people beat me, that's fine, and then I can finish. But that was really the one chink in her armor, I think, was just like some overhead stability. But they showed up.
And so what Joey is speaking about in the last event, there was a lunge, an overhead lunge, again, double 50s for the females at the end of a really hard weekend, and you've done some legless rope climbs. There have been some other stuff you can go back and look, but essentially, Emma's sitting in third at this point in time, and she goes to hit that last lunge. It has to be unbroken 25-foot section. She gets about 3/4 the way in the driver's seat, as Joey said. Obviously, if she wins that, there's no question she's number 1. She wins the Granite Games. She's going full send and gets no reps several times. And I was like, and I immediately, it's so funny, I immediately texted Joey. I said, this is insane. Are you watching this? And
yeah.
You get on and just fill everybody in kind of what you told me. It was a really interesting perspective.
Yeah, she wants to win, right? Emma is a winner, and we saw that just by the move of her saying, listen, I'm not going to go qualify to the games for the team division. I'm just going to skip that altogether because I'm here to play with the big dogs, right? So she's, at this point in time, she's tied for first, right? It was like 520 and 520. So she knew, if I beat this girl, that Lowen girl, I'm going to win the Granite Games, as long as Mallory, only beats me by like 1 spot, I think is how that points would shake down.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, I'm going to go full send. I want to win, let's do it. So she got to the last segment and she was going to go for it. Maybe if she puts him down right there before she starts that last segment, she can do it and win. But I like the move. You want to attack, you want to win. That's what we're here to do. We're not here for second place. We're here for first. So she went for it. Obviously, it didn't work, but I don't think that's ever going to, stop her. If anything, that's just fuel for the fire. And her competition is the CrossFit Games. So she needs that. I think that was like a good wake-up call a little bit. Test of strategy, if you will. And she's going to go for it. I think she needed that moment. It's going to be a defining moment in her career, along with even that like box step over where she tripped, It's that, I don't want to say it's a rookie mistake because the girl's not a rookie. She's been competing for a very long time, but having some experience definitely helps. So, God, I'm scared to see where she's at in 2 years.
So, the story, as we've said, this entire podcast is Mal versus Emma. There was really, obviously, Ariel Lowen ends up winning the Granite Games, and congrats to her. And I don't want to take anything away from her standing atop of the podium, but let's be honest, that's not where people's eyes were. People's eyes were these 17-year-old, I say girls, they're not girls, they're women, 17-year-old women that are crushing it, absolutely crushing it. That was the story. In your mind, that matchup, how do you assess how they did, strengths, weaknesses, kind of going forward, when we see this matchup again at the 2021 CrossFit Games, what do you expect then?
I like Emma's movement. Just look at the snatch. That girl is a technician. A lot of the other stuff she did, she just looked very proficient on the moves. Mallory has like that gymnastics background. It's kind of like Katrin or some of those other athletes. Mm-hmm. So obviously anything inverted, hanging movement, she's going to do very well at. That being said, Emma, like I said earlier, watch her transitions. That girl has something in between her ears that other athletes don't have. She wants it more than them. And I think that's really what it's going to boil down to. I think that's why Emma was able to take the risk. Like I said, it didn't pan out, but the girl hasn't even peaked yet, right? Peak training's coming up, which is terrifying. If you're listening to this and you're an athlete going to games, you should be scared of these two athletes. I don't know anything about Mallory's like aerobic capacity, so as I alluded to earlier, those workouts tend to be a little more aerobic at the games. So, if we do see one or two longer events there, I think Emma can separate herself from Mallory, and this is just me speaking because I don't know anything about what Mallory's like capacity's like, but yeah, I think it plays in Emma's favor there.
I do know, obviously, she's Mal, coached by James Townsend. I do know, I heard this, that Mal has this thing where, I think it was actually on the Training Think Tank podcast, where they were interviewing James, and he said that Mal doesn't feel like she's doing enough, so she warms up every day with anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes of just running intervals on the assault runner prior to prior to her 2 to 3 hour session. I mean, obviously they're doing several sessions. Highly impressed. Just to be 17 years old and to have this mentality of, hey, I see I see the top athletes doing X, Y, Z. These are things I need to be doing. Here's how we close the gap. Having that awareness is something that I know several adults that are 30 and 40 and don't have that level of awareness.
Yeah, I immediately retract what I said. If she's sitting there, willing to pound her head into the wall and do running on that assault runner, the girl obviously is either, a bit psychotic or knows what she's doing. And kudos to James Townsend. Like, I know him through Dex. I've just kind of seen them interact, and like he's a good coach. He's going to have that girl ready to rock and roll. So it's going to be quite the battle. I don't think these two are going to get there and just fold. I think that they're going to be there pushing Tia even. I think
really.
I think so. Why wouldn't they? They proved that they can come out, win events. I love Mallory's pacing on stuff. Right? She comes out and she's like, I'm going to go full tilt. And, I don't think Tia has any chink in her armor, but I think it's going to be fun to watch, if those guys are in the same heat. Mallory's pace out of the gate, pushing Tia, and then again, Emma's willingness to just sprint transitions and be right on somebody's heels. I think it's going to be a fun show.
Well, I don't want to take anything away from the other ladies that qualified. We talked about Lowen that won, Mal in second, Emma in third, Alessandra Pacelli in fourth, and fifth, rounding out that top five going to the games, is Caroline Connors. Anything that stands out in there with the people that either made it or the folks that didn't make it?
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Caroline Connors. She came back from a 29th place finish on that back-to-back part one and really solidified her place in that fifth place spot. People who didn't make it, Steph Chung fought all weekend through an injury, which was awesome. And then Chrissy Eramo is going to be going along with Steph Chung and Nicole McGaney to that last chance qualifier, which we alluded to on the last podcast, how that's going to be one of the most exciting competitions to watch, because it's all athletes who are right on the bubble, who are pissed off, kind of butthurt that they didn't make it, and they're like, listen, I have nothing to lose. I have to go for it here. So, yeah, I think that's going to shake out really well. Kudos to the rest of those athletes. But like as you said, the storyline was Mallory and Emma, and obviously we're a Brute podcast, so we throw all our support behind Emma. So, yeah, good for her.
One thing that I do want to point out about the last chance qualifier that I think is interesting is that it is going to be, because you've got people from all over, it is going to be an online competition.
Mm-hmm.
And as we talked about last time, it's just different we all know when you have to go somewhere and you're using a different barbell, you're using different pull-up bars. It sounds so silly, but as an athlete, you all know you have that favorite spot to do chest-to-bar and bar muscle-ups, and you like your little short straps because they're easier to do ring muscle-ups. And then all of a sudden you get long straps. You're like, oh my god, right? And so I think that's an interesting storyline that will play out over the next several weeks, because that's July 4th, so it's just around the corner, July 4th weekend. So we're already having some people come in that are big names that have, like you said, have missed out. So I'm looking forward to that. I really cannot wait.
Yeah, I think, home field advantage is a real thing. And these athletes, like I said, they're coming off of a disappointing finish because they were, sniffing the CrossFit Games. You're going to be at your home. You're ready to go. You're pissed off. It's a recipe for a lot of people to just go after these workouts, have a bucket ready. You're going to see some vomit.
Anything else that you want to add on the ladies' side of things before checking out the gentlemen's leaderboard?
Not really. I mean, shout out to Alessandra Pacelli for punching that ticket yet again. That is just
Unreal.
A girl who refuses to quit. So good for her. Good work all around to them ladies.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The men's side didn't disappoint either. It was full of ups and downs, and really at one point we were even texting going, oh my gosh, is Chandler going to make it? And if you are just tuning in, the guys' bold prediction, and the guys being Joey and Dex, bold prediction was that Chandler Smith was going to win the CrossFit Games this year. And so we're looking at it at one point where Chandler may not make it, and it was an interesting conversation in here. So just some overall thoughts about the men's competition before getting into some specifics.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Dex and I made that prediction. I still stand by it. I don't know what his trainings look like. He's up there with Ben Bergeron. But, hopefully he hasn't peaked him yet, and hopefully we see him coming out better. All around, what a competition. We saw a lot of people who we've never really heard of on a big stage. A lot of these guys, like that Scott Tetlow, he was impressive. Nick Matthew, Taylor Self, Jake Marconi. All these guys came out. Then we had some other names of people who we've seen who kind of, I don't want to say disappointed, but like Street Horner, obviously a games athlete, I thought I'd see more out of him. Drew Wayman was, he was pretty, he's, I competed against him at regionals back in 2018. He's a good athlete. He, finished 6th there, almost punched his ticket. So all around, just a wild weekend for new faces.
No doubt about it. We were talking about Taylor Self, and prior to getting on here, and a fun fact about Taylor Self was Taylor trains with Jason Hopper, who those of you might have heard that name because that gentleman just punched his ticket to the CrossFit Games last week at the MAC. So from what at least I heard on there watching the broadcast was that Jason speaks really highly of Taylor Self, saying, that there are times, a lot of times is, that Taylor really pushes him in training and beats him in quite a few workouts. Really thought that I kind of see more out of him. I thought maybe he may sneak in there, but rounding out your top 5 is the very, if you watched it, you would have heard this word, consistent. Saxon, Panchik, Chandler Smith in 2nd, Tim Paulson in 3rd, Roy Gamboa, unbelievable performance, and then 5th, the one that we just lost our nuggets. We lost our chicken nuggets over, Colton Mertens, and that's where I want to start this conversation. Give me the 411 on Colton Mertens.
What an impressive athlete. I remember watching him during the Rogue Invitational when they were doing it online, and I was like, man, this guy, I've seen him around, I've seen him at regionals and stuff, and I remember the face, but just a wildly impressive athlete. He got 20th on the snatch, with a 270 pound, which is like pretty nuts. That 270 pounds gets you
last.
Yeah, borderline last place. Then he got 18th on that back-to-back event 1, and then he was able to pull through by this, very close margin. I love the way he moved. He has a really fast cycle time of all his movements because he is a smaller athlete, and those tall people are gonna bitch and moan about, he's short, blah blah blah. I'm like, well, he still has other things to overcome.
Sure.
But if you watch his wall balls, that's one event where I thought he would struggle, 30-pound wall balls. But his squat time, like the speed of his contraction was so fast, he was launching that thing up there. I think he was just dumb trying to touch and go the D ball.
The D ball. Totally agree.
As soon as I saw that, I was like, what are you doing? You have 3 rounds of this. Your heart rate's going to go through the roof, which it did. It slowed him down a little bit. So all around impressive athlete.
So that workout that Joey's referring to was 3 rounds of 33 wall balls at 30 pounds for the guys, 20 for the ladies. Interesting. I want to talk about that's becoming a thing. That's becoming the standard. Then moving on to 22 GHD sit-ups and 11 D-ball. Yes, it was a D-ball at 100 pounds and I believe 75. Or was it,
for that portion it was 150
for
the guys, 100 for the gals. Yep.
Okay.
Then the step overs, it went to 100.
Yeah, the step overs. Yeah, sorry about that. So
no worries.
That to me was a very interesting workout because you saw some guys and girls, but we're obviously talking about the guys here. You saw some guys blitz that first round and had have a complete come apart. Colton was one of those guys who really had a come apart because, as Joey said, was touching and going. And what we mean by that is taking it from the shoulder directly to the ground and back again, those 11 D-ball cleans. And I'm thinking the same thing. I'm looking at it and I'm going, okay, look, I know what that feels like. And now you got to walk back and then do 33 more wall balls. And as Joey said, he is a shorter athlete at, I believe, 5'4" or 5'5" to a 10-foot target. So you can do the math there.
Yeah. I think on a workout like that, you have 3 rounds where, you're going back, you're going back, you're going back. I tell athletes all the time, I'm like, what are you going to look like on round 3? Okay? Are you going to go unbroken on round 3? If not, don't do the first round unbroken. Right? Well, you're going to have to break it up at some point. So I think a controlled break at the beginning is better than an uncontrolled break towards the end. Right? You knowing, okay, I'm going to break this up, count to 5, pick it up, is going to be faster than me doing 5 reps, getting a no rep, it hitting the ground, I'm sitting there and I'm feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah.
That's easily 15 seconds lost. Then, to your point of touching and going, again, watch transition time. It's a big transition from the rig to where those D-balls were, right? So if you touch and go and then you have to kind of crawl back to the rig versus somebody who did quick singles and can even just get a little bit of, hop in their step back there, they're saving time. So not a smart move on his part, and I think he'll correct that.
And going into that workout, he was sitting pretty, I believe, in third place, and podium spot. Granted, he's going to the games either way now, but it was interesting because as we go to this last workout, that again going back to the infamous overhead lunges that we've already spoken about with the ladies' side. Here we are, and we're watching this unfold. And if you can imagine looking to your left and looking to your right and going, oh shit, everybody is passing me. And that's no exaggeration. Everybody in my heat is now passing me. And am I going to make it to the CrossFit Games? And the one guy that I need to beat, Nick Matthew, who was only separated by 3 points, is passing me. What's that feeling like? Because it can't be good.
No, you're like, he's literally watching his games ticket walk away from him, right? And, I thought he would be better on the devil's press than he was. That seemed to eat him up quite a bit. So I don't know what that was about. Maybe he was just gassed. I don't know if he sent the row a little too much or what. But I'm looking at the points breakdown. Nick Matthew got 14th on that workout with 452. Next place above him was Gunnar Reagan at 454. So if Nick, lunges a little faster, he might have had to get 12th to beat Street Horner. But if he goes, 10 seconds faster on this workout, Colton's not going to the games, So I personally wouldn't like to be that close going into a final workout and then just literally thinking to myself, oh, I just crapped. I'm done. We're over, It's got to be a little demoralizing, and I think it's going to be a good lesson for him. I like an athlete like that who faces some adversity at this stage and then is like, you know what? I'm pissed off. I'm going to train even harder. And I think he's going to be that kind of guy.
He was impressive all weekend. I mean, he took quite a few first place finishes, thruster 3.0, so close, but so far away. And he was really an impressive guy. And, you heard him say, hey, I know I'm not going to be, a top dog on the snatch, but, hey, just wait, just watch. You'll see me do what I do afterwards. And he made good on it. I thought he did.
I agree. He was like, he knew what kind of athlete he was. He's like, I'm not going to win a one rep anything, but I'm going to run my head through a wall to win every other event that I can. And to your point, he did make good on that. And I appreciate that, He might need to, let's see what he looks like again, running. I think that's going to be very telling. Obviously, the thruster workout had some running like we discussed, but that was definitely more of a thruster workout. He had really fast cycle times, just like the wall balls. That dude just springed, up and down. So I don't know what the games is going to look like for him. I'm curious to see because we do see, there's going to be a heavy lift. There's going to be more running. Can he swim? So.
Well, I truly think his best days are ahead. And you might say, Micah, why do you say that? Look, he's 23 years old.
Yeah,
he's not peaked yet. He's got a minute.
Not at all.
So
yeah, he'll snatch 300.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
So going down the list, and you've kind of already alluded to it, some people that I thought were kind of surprising. Look, Anthony Davis started so strong, and literally, I'm watching this snatch happen. He misses. Was it 290?
He misses 295 and just rips it off the ground and powers it. Disrespectful. And then proceeds to do the same thing
at 315.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Who does that?
I don't know. I don't know
Godzilla.
Anybody that does
That's who. As Dex said, he's like, that is goddamn Godzilla right there.
Unbelievable. And ends up setting a CrossFit in competition world record at 340 pounds on the snatch. Unreal.
Strong guy. And I think a lot of people, they see that and they're like, wow, this guy can snatch a lot, right? So they're like, all right, he can hit this big lift. Very cool. But what's he going to do on this next event that's a run? And he wins it. Or,
he wins.
Second place.
Yeah.
And I think that was even more impressive than the snatch. Because that's a 225-pound man, cooking on that.
Yeah.
And his story is pretty impressive. His coach, he's one of our athletes. His coach is Nick Fowler. And he wasn't expecting to make it this far this season.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
His plan was to be more competitive next year. So he's been working on a lot of stuff, but he and Nick's plan was like, okay, next year is going to be the year that I really want to give it a shot. So for him to come out and be right there in the mix for all essentially all weekend,
yeah,
was really cool for him, and I think that's good fuel for him going into this off season. He's like, okay, I wasn't even ready for this, and I did this well. So what's he going to look like after a full year of, hardcore training? It's going to be cool.
Absolutely. Continue to go down the list. So that was 10. Anthony Davis. Going down the list, names that are, noticeable, I guess. Street Horner, we referenced earlier. I think the reality is, everyone wants to talk about what they're building there. Proven, Tia and Shane Orr. But the reality is, I think we can all understand this one basic concept. It's not programming. It's the athlete. Programming is important, but Tia is Tia because of Tia. Let's be clear. And just because Street Horner and just because we have yet to see Will Morat but it doesn't mean jack squat. And that's no disrespect. It just doesn't. Everyone wants to say, oh my gosh, it means, no, it doesn't. Just because you get close to it doesn't mean you got the magic.
Yeah, I mean, you can write the perfect program, right? But unless, the athlete follows through, does all the little stuff right, and, chips fall where they may, proof is in the pudding. It's tough to come up with a program or the magic recipe that's going to get these athletes where they want to go unless they're willing to just make those small improvements day in and day out. So, shout out to Street. He fought all weekend. At no point did I think he ever gave up, which was cool to see. But yeah, I thought we'd see his name a little higher on that list.
I did too. I mean, going in, that was one that I was really watching out for because I thought he could make some moves. So overall, on the weekend for the guys, what stands out to you? What's your high points as you watched it, both as a coach and an athlete?
Man, I really liked Saxon just being the silent assassin all weekend, showing up, doing his thing, and no event wins, but the most consistent athlete that we saw. Really cool to see that. Chandler Smith, impressive. I think he has some holes in his games to fix, and I think this is a good test for him. Tim Paulson, I liked him getting 18th place on So Close But So Far Away. He was pissed. If you go back, watch the replay, he throws his grips, he gets super mad, and then he comes out, goes 4-3-1 on the next 3 events. That dude went from I'm mad to I'm going to go win this thing. And, to that credit, he's got a 4th, he's got a 3rd, he's got a 2nd, he's got a 1st. What do you get on the snatch? Probably something good. Oh, a 9th, excuse me. So, aside from that 18th finish, that dude could win.
He's in the mix.
Shout out to him. Shout out to Roy. He was just quiet all weekend till the last day where he had, 3 top 10 finishes again. It was just an exciting weekend to just see these dudes battle, and I liked this format a lot. At no point did it look, aside from Saxon, locked up. It was anybody's game all weekend, and I think that's what really helped that last event have the magic that it did, because everybody was tuned in for that, and you and I were sitting there screaming at the TV.
It was great. It was so great. I started this conversation with the Granite Games did not disappoint, and I think that's kind of where we are now. It's as we look forward to the semifinals to come, there's so much to happen, and what I've been most excited about, even over the MAC, because I think the MAC women's side was just full of big names, and that was exciting. But the one, as we kind of transition and look forward, is the West Coast Classic. And that's where I would kind of like to, as we start to wrap up here, kind of end it with, is the West Coast Classic. What are you excited about going in to that semifinal?
That's a competition that, for me personally, we've got some athletes that are on the team side, so I'm excited to watch them take on that. I know we haven't really talked about any team stuff, but I'm hoping they can punch their ticket there. As far as individual competition looks, we got Allie Scuds going. I think this could be her year. I really do. She's been working with Nick for a very long time.
Yeah.
So I really hope that girl can pull through. For the men, I'm trying to think who's even there.
The men, just real quick, as you're looking, just a couple that are sticking out to me. Obviously, the big name is Noah Olson, Spencer Panchik. Obviously, you've got Dallin Pepper, who was on the podcast last week. Super pumped for him as a brute athlete. Here's one that I think is kind of a silent sleeper, did really well in the Open, was Jake Berman out of Training Think Tank. Really surprised me. He's been relevant, but now it's, oh, wow. Took some events, and I'm excited to see if he can punch his ticket. I really think that's someone that no one's really talking about that really has a chance.
Yeah, I just pulled up the roster. This is going to be a bloodbath. Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, Obviously, Noah and Spencer. I think it'd be cool to see yet another pan chick punch their ticket. Tola is one of the strongest athletes out there. You know, him and our boy were fighting for that snatch record. So, you know, maybe...
Be ready.
Yeah. Alex Smith, another
say.
big name. We got James, we got Dolan, and we got Tudor. Those are our 3 young bucks going out there to prove it. And then, you got some older games athletes with Brandon Luckett, Will Morad, Sean Sweeney. So this is not going to be a disappointing weekend. I am looking forward to seeing what the next wave of these young guys can do out there. I know Dolan, he's another dude who's got a 300-pound snatch, so let's see what he can do.
Yeah, really excited. I mean, I would say from the men's side, this is probably some of the best matchups that I think we have.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't think that,
really
I think
pumped.
all these heats are going to be very competitive.
Yes, like where Heat 3 is battling against Heat 1. Very relevant.
Yeah, I think the time, the time domain between a Heat 3 winner and a Heat 1 winner, where like in some events it'd be like 2 to 3 minutes, it's going to be like closer, a minute to a minute and a half. Yeah, obviously depending 100%. On what event we're looking at, but on the women's side, I'm trying to see who's there. Bethany Shadburn, Carrie Pierce, obviously 2 big names. You got Danny Spiegel, no slouch there.
Danielle Brandon is my girl. Chips all in.
You like her?
Yeah, I really do. I really do.
Lauren Fisher, another good one. So, Caroline Dardini. I mean, this is going to shake up to be another good side. Brooke Wells' sister, Sydney Wells, is there.
That's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting.
Everybody's getting their family into CrossFit these days.
It's really a family affair. I'm curious. I spoke about this with Nick last week, and it was something that I think we got off on as kind of a hot topic, maybe even a soapbox. But as a former athlete and someone that may come back to the sport, we're leaving that door open for all the fans listening.
Hey, we'll see.
Oh, God, he's not retired yet. Okay, I'm curious. So, in the past, there have been, whether you want to call them regionals or sanctionals, whatever. But last year, that sanctional season, really the year before that, when you had Dubai and you had, Granite Games and all these big time sanctionals that had, 25,000 plus as a cash prize for first place, and there were several that had more than that. I'm curious, as you saw the standardization this year of first place 5,000 and second place 3, third place 1, and however it shaked out from there. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's
honest to God.
Yes. That's bullcrap, right? Like, where'd that money go? That's what I want to know. If it turns out that like CrossFit is making them pay to use the name to host this competition, I don't think that's fair at all. I don't know if you watched Arm & Hammer's breakdown of it. He called them out too. He's like, you want to call this a professional sport, but you're not really paying these athletes. So, I actually had this conversation with my wife. She was talking how there are certain sports like that, where they don't get paid until you make it to the big leagues. And I guess, to us, CrossFit Games are the big leagues, and these sanctional events are just like a precursor,
Right.
But there was money there at one point, Somebody was paying these winners money. So I'm just like, I'm really confused as to just how the well dried up so fast. And I think it's unfortunate, as an athlete, I looked forward. I competed at the Granite Games every year. I was fortunate enough to win myself $5,000 every year that I went. That paid for my first car that I bought as an adult, which was cool. I was able to tell my family, look, I'm making a living off of competing. So you can't really say that anymore, which is unfortunate for a lot of these athletes. It's tough. It's really hard to justify spending 4 hours to 5 hours, held 6 hours a day training in a gym and having nothing to show for it, you know? Obviously, we all want to win the CrossFit Games, but there's only one winner. And I'm not saying, like, this needs to be a participation trophy thing, but, like, there's got to be more there for these athletes.
Yeah, I agree. And, my wife made a good point. It's something about all the women in our lives. They tend to make really good points.
That's very true. 100%.
Anyway, she listens to the podcast, so I have to say these nice things about her. But anyways, so one thing that she pointed out, she said, well, hey, have you thought about this? She said, have you thought about the fact that they kind of removed a lot of the, we'll call them intermediate divisions or RX divisions, because obviously they just have elite this year because of COVID. She said, you got to think about the revenue that those divisions specifically were bringing in, or the teen divisions. And I said, that's a good point. However, I still have a hard time believing that made up $50,000. And maybe it did. And you know what? If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. And I'll say, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I misspoke. I just have a hard time believing it was $50,000. Like, to your point, where did the money go?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I have it on good authority because of an unfortunate tax situation that happened to me, and we don't have time to get into this. But, the Kill Cliff paid the Granite Games like $125,000 one year to be like the title sponsor. Obviously money needs to be allocated for tons of different resources, but that's a solid chunk of change. I also know that like some of these events are pulling in like this was before COVID and before all these other intermediate divisions, excess of $1 million with some revenue stream. But then on the stream, I had to listen to CBD MD every 10 seconds, a commercial for them. With Dodge Ram truck.
Thorn.
I'm like, Dodge is like a Fortune 500 company. So I think the opportunity to have some more money there is there, but we'll see. I don't know. Hopefully that can change. I think, I heard ramblings of there's some sort of like athlete union. Is that true?
So Brent Fikowski made this very clear to Travis Williams, who went off on Instagram and started this whole thing, which I agree. Someone needed to be the person to say it. Okay. I'm a fan of that. And he said, hey, look, this, and you can go read it. You can go to Travis Williams' page, read it if he hasn't taken it down. But essentially, in a nutshell, Brent Fikowski commented and said, hey, I didn't know about this. Now, granted, Brent leads, and he made it clear, not an athlete union, but really his job and his organization's job is to really protect the athletes, not necessarily lobby about prize purses. Okay, so fair enough. Maybe there does need to be a union. I don't know. However, he made that clear. He said, so we didn't know about it either, so maybe it was something that CrossFit HQ talked about internally. Now, since all of that came out, we did find out that the prize purse this year at the games has in fact been increased, which is good, which I think is good. However, with that being said, I think to continue to professionalize the sport, there needs to be trickle-down money, specifically at the semifinal level. I'm not saying 50,000, but it should be more than 5. So here's what I'll say. More than 5, less than 50. I think we'd all be okay with that.
I couldn't agree more. And I think like tennis circuits, right? Like you make it to one of these grand slams, you're guaranteed like X amount of money. I think, something like that could be very beneficial, or I don't know, help them out with healthcare or something. Just make it worthwhile to spend your time in this gym and like make it a viable option for a career. That's all we want.
Exactly. Just professionalize the sport, because truly that's the only way it's going to grow. And with younger and younger and younger kids getting into it, I think it really needs to go that way. And I think what's really important for everyone to understand is that, these people aren't making money because they're just working out. They're making money from the sponsorships. Ultimately.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, people need to understand that, because that's really how it works. And I know you can speak to that better than anyone. So it's just, that's the harsh reality of the facts. So anyways, is there, as we wrap up and get off that soapbox, is there anything that you would like to add? Is there anything that you would like to add, or maybe something that I haven't asked?
Well, no, now that I'm triggered, I need to go relax. So thanks for, bringing up old stuff. Appreciate that.
Just ripped off some Band-Aids, bro. That's what I do.
No, we're not bitter. It's fine.
I swear.
What a good weekend.
I know. What a good one. Well, we're going to do it again after the West Coast Classic, and we'll be right back here. Thank all of you for checking it out, for listening. Joey and I appreciate you paying our bills. Speaking of bills. Yeah.
Speaking of them, thank you guys.
If you know any sponsorships, we'll take those too.
We need a title sponsor for this.
Exactly. Come on.
Welcome to the Tesla Brute podcast. Thanks, guys.
Dude, I love where your head is. All right. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.